Hello, everyone, and welcome to Broward Spiritist Society broadcast. Today we are going to talk about the Spirits book, the part of the introduction. And tonight we have here, please, Ionara, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ionara Rocha.
I am Luigi Rocha.
I'm Stephen McPherson.
And I am Cynthia Cavalcanti here with you. We have this wonderful book, the Spirits book, which is the main book for Spiritists. The Spirits book is divided in 4 parts. And the first part, you find the primary cause. And the second part, or second book, you find the spiritual world or spirit's world. The third part, or third book, the moral laws. And the fourth book, hope and consolation. That's it. And today we are going to cover a few questions that you might have when you are studying the Spirits book. Okay, let's start with the first one.
Yes, we can start to talk about the principles of Spiritism, the basic of it. Stephen did the other day a speech about it, so we can go ahead and cover a few of those that it's very interested. The first one is God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, all-powerful. So what do you guys have to say about that?
Where did we stand before? I keep thinking every time I read all those definitions about God. Where were we before those definitions? We were all over the place, right? We had all the doubts about God. Once, from one side, God was just, and from another side, just God was a profile that could punish me or could look for revenge. So everything was so confusing before those statements. And those statements, of course, to me, they don't cover everything about God because we have a limitation. But wow, what concept about God where Kardec put those words in the Spirits book in the introduction.
So, yeah, you bring a good point, Cynthia, because when we talk about God, different dogmatic religions show God as a human, a powerful human, an entity with feelings, an entity that looks like ourselves. And what Ionara read over there, the first introduction, that God is immaterial. So just to start that, for us to look God as immaterial, we can't call him, right? We need to have as it, because it's not a individuality, right? And the next one that she mentioned, it's that immutable, right? That
it doesn't change.
The laws, his natural laws won't change. And this is very important when talking about God, because one of the main laws that God gave us as human beings and individualities, it's free will. And a lot of people always ask the same questions after war, after disaster, after natural disaster, after an accident. Where was your God? Why did he stop that? Why he didn't do something? Why God never stopped the hunger in Africa? Why God never stopped the Spanish cold? And people still do not understand what is God. People still think that is who is God. Keep thinking that he is a who and not a what.
Yes, it's a very good point, and is also when Spiritism explained to us that the God creates law, and the law that governs the universe is completely different than a human being God that is watching all over you. And this is a problem because like you said, Luigi, free will plays a huge, it's one of the things that we have and plays a huge fact. Now, God, it's not actually one person or a babysitter, that it's actually there watching you doing little things, and then every time that you do something wrong, he's going to punish you. Now, it's very important to have this vision because it's a new vision. Because in Spiritism, God does not punish you for the things that you did wrong. And the second one, Luigi, that we can talk about in Cynthia and Stephen too, is that he said that another principle is that God has created a universe which comprehends all beings, animated and inanimated, material and immaterial. So that is completely different from the other religions. The view are different because God creates a material and an immaterial world. So it's not only this world. So see, like the vision, the God that Spiritism presented to us, it's different. It's also the God is justice, but it's good. It's also all good. So I see people that they ask God to forgive them. They only do that because they think that God is a human and has feelings. Now, anything that we do does not offend God. You cannot offend God because God is not a person.
Cannot make him sad.
You cannot make them sad
or
mad or anything because he does understand our imperfection. So how are you going to ask God to forgive you when he doesn't have any hurtful feelings for you? He doesn't. He's pure love.
But this still coming from, the Old Testament, 4,000 years ago, where Moses had to pose a God, a human God. That way, those people from 4,000 years ago, merely savages, right, with no intellectuality, could understand at least the beginning of the concept of God. And 4,000 years later, we're still using the same concept. We are no longer savage without any intellectuality or morality. We can now have the condition to understand God on a different point of view, on a different level, on a different vibration, on a different dimension.
And a different perspective also.
Definitely.
Because that's why we see that atheism, it's growing. Because people are not going to buy this idea of God that it was in place 4,000 years ago. Because people need a deeper interpretation of God, something more complete. And I think Spiritism does that. He brings out a different type of God, a different vision of God.
Listen to you talking now. I was thinking how important it is for us to renew or refresh our concepts and beliefs just because we are in this path of evolution, in an evolution of the spirits, and that's what this book is inviting us to evolve. And how can we evolve if we have old concepts?
Yes.
And we need a new concept to evolve with us as well. Just as, for example, we keep thinking that God created evil. Evil is created by man. If God created everything, then it wouldn't give to us the pain. It wouldn't give to us the anesthesia. It wouldn't allow man to find anesthesia to remove the pain. So we need new concepts, and we need to new beliefs, or to refresh our beliefs, to review our beliefs in order to evolve.
Right. And he said here, look, he's all-powerful, supremely just and good. Supremely just and good. So, like you said, evil cannot come from God. Evil comes from us because we are imperfect. We make mistakes because we were created simple and ignorant. and we are on a path of evolution. And in this path of evolution, morally and intellectually, of course, we're going to do wrong.
And there was a lot of problems that the concept God can bring if you don't actually reflect upon this to see and to search for a different type of God that most of the religions in the world teach us. Because I had a coworker. This was a few years ago, and I told her that I would go to the center this many times a week, and she said to me that I used to believe in God. And I was like, oh yeah? I was like, yes. I said, you don't believe it anymore? And she said, no, I don't believe it anymore. I was like, oh. And then she said to me, if you answer one question that I have, and if you can satisfy me with that one question, I will think about God again. I was like, okay, what is your question? And she said, why did God kill my son? Mm. So look how personal people see God.
Of course, he was made personal because everything, it was under his control. But people forgot that he gave us free will. And he's immutable. He cannot change that. And he cannot influence our free will.
I know, but we cannot see God with his personal view. Because God, like I said, he created the world, he made laws to do it, and we are allowed to live. So my answer to her was exactly the next fundamental principle of Spiritism. I said, what if I tell you that if your son is not dead? What do you mean? I was like, in my opinion, that does not exist. So, how, in order to believe in God, you're going to have to believe in the spiritual world. You're going to have to believe that you are an eternal being. And that's so amazing because we are a spirit. We are an eternal being. So I told her the God that I perceive is different than the God that you perceive. Now, the God that I perceive, to me, he just went on a trip. He just went to another dimension. It's a completely different perspective that she had. And then she said, oh, then if you believe in that, then in your opinion, God did not kill my son. I'll say, absolutely not. But you see how personal people take it when they don't understand the concepts of God? Because every single religion believes that we are a spiritual being. But we act like materialism, most of the religions.
Yeah, but all religions also see death as a punishment. They don't see death as a natural process of the human spirit evolution. Now, if you start seeing death as a regular fatality that is going to happen with everybody, that everybody got to go through it, it's like going to school. A small kid think that is going to school is the end of the world. But after he's in school, he will understand, he will enjoy it and make friends and so on and so forward. But every religion today says that death is the end of all things. Death is a punishment. And it is not. It's just a process because we are an eternal spirit. And we're going to continue coming. But the thing is, people to understand God, they need to understand justice. They need to understand the law of reincarnation, the law of evolution.
Yes, we're going to talk about that. The next principle on introduction of the Spirit book, it says that the material being constitutes the visible or corporeal world, and the immaterial beings constitute the invisible or the spiritual world. That is to say, the spiritual world or world of spirits. So this is exactly what we need in Spiritism. We learn that we have the material world, but we also have the spiritual world. So we are citizens of both worlds. That's exactly how we do. So we come in, and it's just like we are going on a trip, and we come in for a few years, then we go back.
A spirit with a human experience.
Yes, we are a spirit with a human experience. Yes, it is.
That's what we are.
But it's very important to understand this world, because people think that the spiritual world is a world of gas or clouds when nothing happens.
Or you're going to stay there sleeping.
Yeah, or sleep, or
Or you're going to go to a very nice place and forget everybody that was here. Or you're going to go to a very bad place and suffer.
Yes, and the spiritual world is just like this world. The material world is just on a different dimension. It's nothing amazing about that. It's actually the theory of the multiple universe explains this a little bit. You know, it's just not exactly the same concept, but it can explain that we do have other dimensions. And the spiritual world, it's nothing but that, different dimension. And we need to get used to that. And that concept is, in Spiritism, is that school there? Yeah. Is that a hospital there? Yes. Is there a jail there? It's a world. It's just in a different dimension, and that's pretty.
And in other words, that death is not going to change who you are.
Yes.
So if you die, you're not going to become an angel because you died. You're going to continue being the same Joe, James, Richard that you were.
It's a continuation of life.
It is.
Exactly.
On a different vibration only.
Yeah.
Actually, in this book, in the Spirit's book, Kardec's going to say that the material world is a copy of the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. So, for us to understand a little bit, because we cannot move from one environment to another, and it has this radical change from material to immaterial. So, Kardec also is going to tell us here in this book that even the spiritual world is still a material world. It's just vibrating on a higher vibration than is this one here.
And then look at the next one, which they said the spirit world is the normal, primitive, eternal world, pre-existent to and surviving everything else. So the spiritual world is our home, and it's the real thing.
He's there,
and the material, it's where we belong. And the material world, like I said, we just come here to evolve.
On experience.
I want to say that some people actually have this kind of idea, like innately in their conscience.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have movies like The Matrix, where we say that maybe what we see as reality isn't a reality, and a lot of people really connected with that film, and they thought maybe it's a metaphor for something else, for life. And then you also have, I remember being a kid, and some kids would say, what if when you go to sleep at night, the dream is the real life, and this is like the dream, this waking life. So some people kind of always have this idea that maybe there's more to life than the material world.
Isn't it that wonderful also to find that out? Because if you're thinking about our evolution, the way we see life from 200 years ago and the way we see it today, and the thing is that the way I see it is that there is so much more to learn.
And to discover.
And
this is not the end. Can you imagine? The death is not the end.
Yes.
It's
and
just
there is a lot of
a small beginning.
There's just a lot of research on that, like the near-death experience, reincarnation, research. There's a lot of things going on that it can actually prove that this is really great possibilities, To me, it's real, but to the people that have no idea, just think about it. Think about it, the possibility that, yes, there is another world, another dimension, and when that occurs here, what is that? Is It's just the body, you know.
You are not the body.
You're not your body.
It's like a clothes that you wear. You're not the clothes that you wear. So, and then we're going to see that a little bit ahead here, the reincarnation part of it. So,
Okay. So let's go. Do you want to say
no,
something?
go ahead.
Okay. And then we'll say that the spiritual world is the normal. Okay. The next one is the corporeal world. It's only secondary. It might cease to exist or never have existed without changing the essentiality of the spiritual world. It's exactly what we were talking about before, Cynthia.
So the spiritual world is more important than the material world. Is our natural world. It's where it's our home.
Because it's eternal. And this here will pass. Like I just want to go back here a little bit what Steve said about the matrix and the dreams, and that's exactly it. So when you study this here, when you study these new things, when you're talking about the new concepts, the new concept of God, everybody look for new concept of everything: health, food, technology. But a very important thing that is God and our divine principles, people do not look for new concepts. They too accepting those concepts. And then when you come bring this idea, I know it's a movie, but it shows a big truth over there, because when you're driving and you're looking around people fighting in a car or fighting on a traffic, and they have no idea that what's going on. They have no idea why they're here.
And why
They have no idea where they came from. And they have no idea where they're going.
life purpose.
Yeah, they have no life purpose. And then that's right, depression, suicidal, keeps rising more and more and more.
Okay. And another thing is the spirits temporarily assume a perishable material envelope, the destruction of which is the body, by death restored them to liberty. Look at how wonderful, look how beautiful this concept is.
Yeah, so death is an emancipation of the spirit. It's not something that we have to be afraid of anymore.
Yes, exactly. And then even though it's painful because we're going to miss the people that we love, that was actually go to another dimension, by knowing that they're still alive, knowing that they still exist, knowing that one day, we all going to meet, knowing that by dream I can encounter them and meet them. It's just
And knowing that
wonderful.
one day you're going to meet everybody that you lived here in this material world.
But you meet it every day. The difference is with other religions, yes, one day I'm going to meet my mother. Spiritism gives you a different concept also. Yes, one day we're going to see all that, but we can get in contact with them now. They're here.
That is true.
They're just in a different dimension. There is way to communicate with them. Unfortunately, there is a lot of people there that are not taking this seriously, but there is ways to do that. And also on your dream, when you go to sleep, like Stephen said, when you go to sleep, there is, you can go to the spiritual world and then meet the persons that you love.
Even just like when you think about a loved one who's passed, you get that warm feeling. That it might be more than just a feeling. That's kind of what we're getting at.
It is. It's a lot more than just a feeling when you actually get to experience that. It's just a wonderful consolation, and it just feels wonderful when the medium Chico Xavier brought so many letters from mothers that lost their child, and too many of them were able to go back to their lives not without any pain, but at least with a lot of consolation.
The consolation, that's what people looking for when they lost a loved one. They want to make sure they are okay. They want to make sure they still exist. They want to make sure that it's not the end. And the mediums today, serious mediums, that really do this for the love, they do this to help themselves evolve and others, they can really connect to the spiritual world on a serious way and bring from the other side the messages for those who will pass. Spiritual centers all over the world, they have mediumship meetings where people study for years and years and years, and they study the communication between the material world and the spiritual world, not in a way of a financial way, but in a way of self-enlightenment and to help others with their suffering and pain. So that's what Spiritism is about.
And we need those answers. We need that Spiritism comes with the Spirit's teachings to help to everyone that is without that consolation, without hope. And that's why we have so many problems right now. And this is because the religions, they did not moved on with their concepts and tried to bring together those concepts and stayed with those old ideas, and they got stuck with those old ideas. So we were in this path on evolution, the spiritual evolution that we are now in the spiritual era, but then the concepts became old. And we had no explanations for so many things. What happened when I die? Am I able to speak with my loved ones that passed away? And so on and so forth. So we are growing spiritually, morally, mentally, intellectually, but those moral concepts, they
still
are
old.
so old behind.
And they start, and they're still pushing these concepts into the public. And people is not going to accept that.
Exactly.
They make sense,
And another thing that it's very interesting is just, Cynthia, what you just told us is exactly what Kardec starts the introduction of the Spirit's book, because he said that he had to create the word Spiritism, because what he was going to bring, it was a completely new concept of anything that we ever seen. So what they need is a new word for it. So that's why he actually brought us the word Spiritism.
The word was created by him.
The word was created by him exactly because of that. So the concept that we bring is so different that we need a name. We need a new name for it. And that's when the word Spiritism
and people confuse Spiritism with spiritualism.
Yeah, it's different.
It's
Spiritualism
totally different.
Spiritualism was there already.
Yeah, it was that already.
Yeah.
And Kardec said that even though that the turning tables and everything started right there, that's when God Kardec's eye on it. It was the first thing he saw it. But there was different concept that did not exist in spiritualism, and that's why he needed the word Spiritism, and that's important for people to know.
And just to mention that what Ionata is talking about is the May 31st, 1848, with the Sisters Fox, with the events of the wrapping the tables and walls, that this event was symbolically marked the Spiritism and the new the advent of Spiritism in the world with Kardec. Yeah, and this book was published in April 18th, 1857, which is 106 years old. And it's getting more fascinated now, because back then, when Kardec published this book, we had the classic physics. And now we have a different physics that can explain so much more and closer to these concepts that we find in the Spirit's book.
Yes, that's very good.
Exactly, quantum physics.
Okay, now the another things that he said here is the soul is an incarnated spirit whose body is only its envelope. Like Luigi said, we're not this body. Now it's important to know that we are connected to this body cell by cell, so that it's why it's so difficult for us to see that we are so much more than only this body. Now, think about it, only this concept, how much happiness can bring to the world if you realize that you are not just this body.
That you are being given an opportunity.
It's
to
an
live,
instrument.
and with the free will to live the endless opportunities that you can live here and the spiritual realm as well, but the endless opportunity that you can do about your personal evolution while you are incarnated here.
I can stop going to the gym then, right?
Why?
Well, you should live the life that we have right now well lived, right? Because the opportunity was given for you to live, not to exist. So, as soon as we get to the part of the reincarnation, that's what's going to get more excited, of course.
Yes, but think about it. There was some people there. That's why I think Stephen was mentioning I can stop going to the gym. It's because some people today in this world, we are so obsessed with our bodies, like there is nothing else but this body, and then you go 7 days a week to the gym, and then especially women that they suffer so much because they don't accept the body that they have. And if you think about it, yes, you could take care of it. It's your instrument. It's your job to take care of this. But it's a huge problem, brings a lot of suffering when you think that you are this body only. Think about it. Everybody's going to get old. And people are having trouble accepting the aging of the body because they think they're just a body.
The more attached to the body, more sufferings because of the animal instinct.
Because you can't do anything. That's part of life. Your body, it's going to go. And you're going to have wrinkles eventually. And you're not going to look as good when you are 16 or 17 years old. And you see people going to so much problems in that area today just because they don't understand and they don't have the concept that they are spiritual beings, that this body is something that is going to go. Now look at the difference of a person that they know for sure that they're just using that body. So that person is not going to be as depressed when they see that the age is coming, because they're going to accept the fact that they actually are getting old. But what's getting old is the body, not them. The spirit gets wise, not old, supposedly, if we work with this. So it's a huge problem, Cynthia, when we talk about young people, when we talk about how much they suffer when they go to school and they are not the prettiest boy or the prettiest girls in school, when they don't think that they're beautiful. All these problems comes from only believing in a body. Think how much problems we could avoid
if we
teach and
spirit.
if people see it, that they're not only this body. Because guess what? Right now in this reincarnation, I have this body, but I'm much more than that. In another incarnation, I'll have a different one. So there is no attachment to it. You just take care of it. It's your job, but there is no attachment to it. So you don't give that much of importance of something that your job is to take care of it. Your job is to keep it healthy, but you don't get obsessed with that, with the body. Now, think about it, how much problems we have with people that don't want to eat, with people that are, what is the name?
bulimia?
Anorexic or bulimic,
Anorexia, bulimic,
eating
this is
disorders.
eating disorder. There was
Social disorders.
clinicals here that helps people with that anorexia, or people die from that.
Right.
They die from it. So the world needs new concept.
Yeah.
You know why? Because we need to be happier. And there is no way to interpret this, to live this life with a perception of materialism only. There is no way we're going to be happy if we don't see this new concept.
We live with a modern concept, science, but old concept. For example, the YOLO slang, you only live once.
Yeah.
So
I like
no such a thing,
I like
right?
messing with the people at the Spiritist Center too. Like when they're like, "Oh, do you want to have this powdered queijo or have this piece of cake?" I say, "Well, you only live once," and they usually nod and say, "Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and eat it." They're not like listening or
And people think that way. They only
Yeah.
live once, and we need to do everything that we need to do here, because when we die, there is done. So there is no responsibility of the actions done here. So morality goes all the way down on the ground, right? Materialism goes all the way up here, and everything that is important is money, looks, and status.
there's no reason to help anybody else
There is
or
no
practice
Hillary.
charity.
Exactly.
If you
Why
only
are you
live
gonna
once.
help?
Yeah, why bother with all that stuff?
Why bother? If you die, you're gonna seize everything.
And when you actually do these things like practice charity, do something nice for somebody, reach out for somebody, you get that good feeling from it, and that's
The
kind
joy.
of what's the evidence of that there's something else out there.
And that good feeling is the feeling of responsibility of being a human being. Is the feeling of peace and happiness. That good feeling, and you only feel that when you're doing what you're supposed to do here in this world. That is, put yourself away a little bit materialism, and thinking about yourself as a spirit, a eternal spirit.
There's a-
Overcome matter.
Overcome matter. We need to overcome materialism. We need to overcome matter. We are too. It's like a vice to us, materialism.
And there is a contradiction that we have, because we read that so much, YOLO expression, you only live once. And then comes science with the positive psychology saying if you have compassion, if you have altruism, you live a better life. So if I only live once, why would I be compassionate or helping others to have a better life? Why?
Yes, because to help other people, to be compassionate, you need to be. You need to have courage. You need to be strong to deal with people that are in suffering. And why are you going to do that if you only live once?
Yeah.
So the big people in the world, those big names that everybody talked about, they are the role model of the entire world. What they did? The only thing that they did is to have compassion to others.
So true.
There is, the other day in Facebook, I was looking to this concept, and it says, you only live it once with this body. So,
With this body, yes.
yeah, so it will change that a little bit. You only live once with this body.
Oh,
It
I
means
see.
you have another body.
body.
And if you see this way, and if you we try to change the concepts, like you said, that's really nice. We need to change our concepts. And if you go into the concept that we're going to come back here many times, that this body is going to pass and we're going to continue live on, life is, what is bigger than life then? There is something way bigger than life. Because a lot of people say there is nothing bigger than life, but there is. Love is bigger than life.
It's easier to see that. You know how you can see that? Get somebody that you really love get sick. You actually will give your life for that person. Like for a son or a kid or somebody that you deeply love. At the moment that if you could choose, you could say, I go in your place. That means that love is bigger than life. and you people give their lives for it. Another way of doing this, it's like you praise, so you think that money is important, but when somebody gets sick on your family, you don't mind spending all the money that you work for your whole life if that was going to save that person's life. So love, it's bigger than anything else. Love, it's what really matters.
Love is our
Because
principles.
think about it. If you think that money is what counts, and then somebody that you really love is going through a tough time, you say, no, I'm not spending that. Right? But no, what do? You give everything for that person. Even
If you really love that person.
your life. Even your life.
And we find this compassion that you're talking about in nature as well. Amongst our brothers and sisters, animals, we see everywhere. If we have the eyes to see and to observe, we will find these principles that you were talking about
So
everywhere.
So you can say that what's the most important thing in life? It's love. No doubt. It's love. You just don't see it, but if you think about it, it is love.
It's a love in a more broader way, right? It's not the love of the I love my family, but we're talking about a more universal love where we see everybody as equal. So the son of my friend has the same importance than my own son. So that's the type of love we're talking about.
And Luigi, if you look at it, by instant, if somebody, did you know that if somebody is going to shoot you, Cynthia, my instant, I'm going to put and I'm going to go on top of you to protect you?
Right.
You know? That's the
surviving
instinct. The
instinct,
surviving
yeah.
instinct. This is love. We have it. You know, we're made to love. And if somebody may come here, the first thing, if I see a shot, I might just jump in front of you to get the bullet for you. People do that for people all the time. All the time.
And a pure instinct,
And a pure instinct.
because love is within.
It is.
It is,
because
isn't it?
it's the most important thing.
And we need to make this love grow on us. The seed is there, but we need to grow this like a big tree. That's what we need to do.
Yes, and that's why we have the job to fight materialism, because materialism, it's only bringing unhappiness, it's only bringing suffering. I remember years ago, right before Spiritism was came to the world, like the church used to own the state. And the church used to say what was right and what was wrong. So if you were a medium, for an example, you would be called witchy and you would go and you would die on a fire. Anyway, so we have to understand history to understand why we became this world of materialism. It's because we rebel against the church. And we thought that was abusive. And then what we did was, okay, no, we have to create something different. And we went from one opposite to the extreme. So, and then materialism came in. Because before, if you look at it, what we study on university was God. That was part of the program. You know, but because of the abuse of religion, the abuse of the church, people rebel completely against those ideas. And then materialism was born.
They shouldn't rebel against the church, but what they did, they rebel against God.
They rebel against the concept. And then, because look, years ago was, who did you meet that didn't believe in God? You know, there was all spiritual, magical things that they live. You know, morality was something extremely important because of the Christian teaching. And then when materialism came, it rebelled against this concept. And then we said, you know what? There's no such a thing as the spirit. The only thing we have now, it's matter. We only have this body. And okay, now we've been living with this concept for a couple hundred years now, and it's not working. Why it's not working? People are not happy. They are more unhappy, than before, because now you can't leave the world like thinking that matter is the only thing that exists. If you're not matter, if you have something else, if you're a spiritual being, so you're looking for answers on the wrong place.
Yeah, we're still looking for happiness outside of our bodies through, accumulating things or accumulating money or getting the right relationship instead of like looking for happiness within.
That's what materialism teaches. People don't know that. But those are one philosopher that thought this is a way of living, one scientist that thought this is the way of living, and then what they did is they start teaching that at universities. And this is how you manipulate people. This is how the new ideas comes on. People don't change the concept if the schools doesn't change.
I noticed most of like my friends that are very well educated are also atheists.
Yes,
They've been
exactly.
to university.
Because that's the concept that they're teaching in that. And that's how they manipulate people. If you change the concept is going to have to be changed at school. Before, in France, when Spiritism was born, they was teaching on spiritualism at universities.
Yeah, they seem to think that people that believe in God or religion are simple-minded people. Like, oh, that's just like the opiate for the masses.
It's
Right.
the rebellion.
Exactly.
It's the rebellion against the abuse. This is how the whole thing started.
It's not this only, it's the laziness of the religious people not to be preoccupied of understanding God or Jesus Christ or their laws. They want to go to the church, sit down in a chair, listen to somebody, put their money in a box, and they want to be safe. And that's not going to cut it. We need to do our work. And people like your friends that go to the university, intellectuals, they are atheists, they see these people as simple-minded because they are like a bunch of cattle. They go in, they get their food, and they go away.
But this is exactly what they rebellions against it.
Yeah, but this is the fault of the people that follow the religion. We need. Religion is not to be followed. Religion is to be studied. Okay?
And needs to be practiced. That's
and
the
practice.
problem too. That's why when you see the importance to bring new concept like Spiritism bring us, when you look at the bigger picture, you see how much the world is in need for something that it's not abusive like the church, okay? Like it does not tell people what to do. It's not something that believes in Adam and Eve and the talking snake or stuff like this, to bring more of a scientific idea and the faith that it's actually rationalized, completely different than dogmatic religion. You know, it was something new that came in on the right time. It was on the right time. You know, when you see Kardec talking, Kardec said, "I'm most afraid of materialism." Spiritism came to combat the materialism, not other religions, but materialism is danger. And now we see it that he was afraid of something that became real. Look how materialism took over, you know, in most of the world, and the problems that we are having.
If materialism was the answer for happiness and peace, you should ask this to your friends from the university. Why aren't you happy if you have what you need to have? Why aren't you in peace? That's the question you need to ask. Did materialism brought you peace or happiness? Did being an atheist brought you peace and happiness? That's the question you should ask. Because if it was true, We won't see Hollywood actors killing themselves, famous people or rich people killing themselves,
Or depressed.
or depressed,
Yeah,
or
because
unhappy.
they have all together, like they are attractive, they are smart, they are talented, they are young, they are pretty, they are everything.
Rich.
They
Rich,
have everything the
everything.
materialism
Are they
praise.
happy? No. Are they in peace? No. So what is missing? Love.
And it is so true what you're saying, because I remember I lived in Germany, and because of the wars on religious topics, and it was for Europe, it is in a country like Germany. I was trying to talk about religion with someone, and then my friends, they say, in Germany we do not talk about religion. I am like, never, no. This is a no subject. And I was thinking, how dangerous
Just like in France.
is that?
Just like in France. I had a guy
Oh,
in my house in France also. Religion.
How
And-
dangerous is that?
And that there is research that said that even in a time that Spiritism came in, when people used to, how sometimes you say something and you knock on wood?
Mm-hmm.
Every time that somebody said the word religion, the French will spit on the floor.
Wow.
That shows, because it's the rebellion against the church.
Because they were
Against the
fooled. Because they
abusive,
think
because
they were
the church
fooled by
did
it.
command the state
Right.
for the longest time, and they rebellion. But every time we rebellion, we have this problem. We rebel against something, we go from one extreme to the other.
We don't try to understand. Here, let me understand my way. But no, we're gonna do this. Okay? And another thing also, to be a religious person, it's not easy. Because you need to study, you need to preach, and you need to do what you preach. Okay? So it's not easy. And you need to change every day. And you need to, know yourself.
Honey,
See
but
in
that,
yourself what it needs to be changed.
but you have to realize that this is what Spiritism believe.
Yeah, I know.
Because unfortunately, other beliefs today, other religions today believes that as long as you ask for forgiveness, you're good. So you can do anything that it's not right. But if you ask for forgiveness, then you're good to go.
The last minute of your death, yeah.
I had, this was a real thing. I was helping a customer on my job, and I knew him, he was a religion person. What is it, Protestant, evangelical, whatever. So he said, and when we started, I was helping him, and we were talking, and then he said to me that he was having an affair. And I was like, you were having an affair? Yes, this girl that, that I met and a while ago, and then we just connected and this and that, and I know that he's married. So I looked at his eyes, and I told him, I thought that you were a religious person. And he goes, I am. I was like, I thought that you go to church. And he said, I do. And why would you do that? And he said, oh, there's no problem. As long as before I die, I ask God for forgiveness, everything's cool. So he's using the system to live his life and through what he believes.
Hypocrisy.
So people will go in and say, if the traditional religion is teaching you that you can do whatever you want, as long as before you die, you ask for forgiveness, there is no transformation on that.
There's no need for transformation.
No, whatsoever. You don't need to become a better person. Another thing that religions do teach you is that faith saves you. Okay? And then what it means? You can do whatever you want as long as you believe in Jesus Christ, you're saved. Look, and people work around the system, so they live their lives thinking about that. So there is no change, but there is also not happiness. Because we keep talking about people, Cynthia, that are materialism and it's miserable, but there are so many people in religions that are also miserable. Also miserable. Because happiness will come when you transform yourself. Happiness will come when you change. Happiness will come when you love. And it's a completely different process. So the old things that the people rebellion against is still the main idea of religion, and that's a problem.
It is like we are growing old with this body, but living like adolescent, like a teenager, wearing clothes like a teenager, and behaving like a teenager.
Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we're doing something like this, because we see the difference in Spiritism. We see how different this concept is. And trying to put the word out there, and saying, listen, this is a new thing. There is nothing like you've seen before. The Spiritism, it's something completely different.
160 years later is still a new thing.
It's still, yeah.
Because you can ask anybody here in the United States, any American, if you ever heard about Spiritism. They're going to shake their head and say, no, I never heard of it.
They never heard about Allan Kardec. And that's our mission here.
Even people that are spiritual. See, I didn't start out as a spiritist. I came a long journey to come here. But a good friend of mine sort of introduced me to meditation. He's a very spiritual guy. I asked him a couple months ago, I said, do you believe in reincarnation? He goes, no. So even people that are spiritual, by the definition of the word, don't even necessarily believe in spirits.
Yeah, because being spiritual today is a kind of a new thing. It's the new wave. Mm-hmm. It's more the holistic way. But that's the problem. They don't get in depth in knowledge of what they want to be.
Yeah, Kardec talks about that when defines about the soul. It's such a simple world that most people believe that they have a soul unless they are atheists. But it's exactly what Stephen's saying. Some people think that being spiritual is just being moral, is just being in peace with themselves. It's like connected to a virtue. That's why they call it spiritual. Kardec talks about that in the introduction of the book. And then you have the ones that the concept of the soul, that the soul is created with the body, and then afterwards you just go back to this search, whatever it is, search like God or whatever, like pantheism.
Path,
yeah. And pantheism. So even though look how the concept is, even though soul, it's a world that everybody believes, but everybody defines soul on a different ways.
But it is true, yes. It's a good point that you put that, Steve. Yeah, I'm spiritual. What do you mean spiritual?
I even looked up spiritual in the dictionary like a long time ago, just because I said, what is this? And in the dictionary, Webster's dictionary, it said to have a greater view of things, to look at the big picture. So now my concept of it is changing. Like if I'm saying spiritual, I'm thinking something having to do with the spirit.
Yes.
But that's not even in the dictionary.
And again, that's the reason why it did needed a new concept. It's like I'm spiritist. That's completely
right. Brought this new word.
Different.
Yeah.
Okay,
mister?
Mm-hmm. So I think that's it, right? For today, we keep talking. Next week, we will have a few more things to go. So,
okay, wonderful. Anyone would like to add anything before we end this broadcast?
Yeah, I'd like to add something. If somebody hear this or see this, just for curiosity, pick up the book online. It's free. The Spirits book, written by Allan Kardec, in April 18 of 1857, and take a look. It's not gonna cost you anything, just to change a little bit, the concept of a wonderful thing that is God. and love and immortality.
And also, I would like to add that if anybody wants to get in touch with us, we have a Facebook page, Broward Spirits Society. We have English lectures every Wednesday at 8:15, and it does go live on Facebook all over the world. So if you want to like our page, and also if you wanted to ask any questions, Cynthia can give you an email address to ask us questions, so maybe we can talk about that.
What is our email again? I forgot.
Spiritismnetwork@gmail.
I forgot.
Yes, it could be. Okay, go ahead.
But it will
Spiritism
be on the
Network.
bottom of the screen when this video comes out.
It's Spiritism Network. Okay. Okay. You can get more information emailing us at spiritismnetwork@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for being with us, and please come back for more broadcast with the Broward Spiritist Society. Just to put in the beginning, if you want to.
Thanks for giving me extra work.
All right, so we can mark here where we stop, honey.